Happy Monday, everyone. This is Martha with Nature Niche, and this week I want to talk to you about autumn olive management. So this is a follow-up post to Monday with Martha number 128, and which was about the life history of autumn olive as an invasive species. Today we're going to take a deeper dive into management techniques that are available to homeowners for controlling this invasive shrub. Due to its tendency to sprout back after mowing, browsing, and fire, it can be a tough species to manage and often requires a combination of mechanical and chemical treatment and then long-term monitoring to keep track of root system resprouts and seedlings. So one easy technique is hand pulling, so mechanical control. And that can be conducted all times of the year except when there are frozen soils. And it's very effective for like the smaller sporadic seedlings and saplings that are less than ½ an inch in diameter and harder to treat with other methods. You want to make sure that you are getting the entire root system. This species does have a deep taproot, and it can resprout from any root system parts that you're leaving in the ground. So you can do that by hand. You can use something like a weed wrench. There are specialized pieces of pulling equipment that you might be able to rent or borrow from your local CISMA, which is Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area. Here in the Midland, Michigan area that is stationed out of Chippewa Nature Center. And you just want to make sure that any pulled material, that the roots are placed where they will completely dry out, are in contact with the soil, and not able to resprout. If you're pulling individuals in the early summer when the material is fruiting, you want to make sure that you burn that fruit or bag it and landfill it. And in Michigan in particular, you can bag and landfill invasive species material. You just want to label the bags as such. And you don't want to carry it all over your site, drag it, or put it in a compost pile, because that can promote the spread of this invasive species. Another technique you can consider is foliar herbicide application. This has to be conducted during the growing season, when the leaves have fully fleshed out, and that can go all the way into fall. You just want to make sure you stop using this treatment before the leaves start turning yellow on the shrubs, and before you start getting those first hard frosts of the fall. Autumn olive tends to, as an invasive species, green up early and keep its leaves late, and so hitting those early or late periods when it's still green and surrounding native plants are dormant is a pretty good time to use this method. And then doing that before autumn olive flowers or fruits helps as well. So this method does have a higher risk of damage to non-target species, and you can reduce this by using it on sites where there's just generally low vegetation diversity, not a lot of desirable native plants neighboring the plants that you're trying to treat. And you can select a dicot or broadleaf specific herbicide to reduce collateral damage. It's important to consider your site's proximity to wetlands and waterways, and choose an herbicide that is labeled for aquatic use when you're in those particular situations. I use a dicot-specific aquatic labeled herbicide with the active ingredient triclopyr. The trade name is Garlon 3A. So that's what I'm using to control autumn olive on my own property after consulting with some professional herbicide applicators. And because it is dicot specific, if it accidentally gets on grasses, sedges, rushes, monocots, those species won't be impacted. It's very important to always read and follow pesticide labels and follow the directions for safe and proper use. Make sure you have the right PPE, So long sleeve pants, gloves, eye protection, whatever the label calls for, and apply during appropriate weather conditions, not on windy days, and avoid spraying actively flowering plants to help decrease adverse impacts to pollinators. You can use different methods for foliar application. It can be as simple as a small spray bottle or a pump sprayer. You want to choose something with a nozzle that you can adjust the stream and focus down, so you really have control over where the chemicals are going. You can also use, they make backpack sprayers if you're trying to treat a larger area and need to carry a larger volume with you. You want to make sure you're covering the foliage, but not to the point that the herbicide is dripping off and landing on the ground and getting on adjacent vegetation. You want to make sure you review the label and select adjuvant or additives that are compatible with the particular herbicide you're using. And you want something like that with foliar application because it helps the herbicide stick to the foliage and break down the waxy cuticle and increase penetration of the chemical into the plant. And it helps to add, this is an example of an adjuvant, and it helps to add a blue tracker dye so that you can see where you have applied already versus not. If you're unsure or not willing to take precautions when using pesticides, I really recommend you just hire a professional certified pesticide applicator. In Michigan, you also want to be sure that you secure an aquatic nuisance control permit from Eagle if you are applying herbicide over open water or beneath the ordinary high water mark of the Great Lakes or Lake Sinclair. And you want to make sure, if you're outside of Michigan, you're checking your state's regulations related to pesticide use in wetlands if that's where you happen to be treating invasive species. The best advice that I can give for foliar application is to reserve this technique to treating small resprouts from stumps that have already been cut in previous years, or for treatment of small seedlings or saplings that are just too numerous for you to be able to hand pull, or too small, less than about ½ an inch, making a lot of cut stump treatment difficult. My favorite, my personal favorite method for controlling autumn olive is cut stump treatment. And that is because you use less herbicide with this technique, and it's very effective and has lower risk of impacting non-target native plants that you want to keep. You can use this technique most of the year. You just need to avoid roughly March through May, depending on where you live. You don't want to use this method when sap is flowing upward in plants, because that'll push the herbicide right back out. And you want to wait until the foliage is fully flushed out after that spring period and fully expanded. The tools involved for doing cut stump treatment can include something as simple as a pair of loppers. I use this on stems that are about an inch and a half. Any bigger than that, and I'm not really strong enough to slice them through. When I'm dealing with those larger diameter stems, then I would say move to a handsaw or a chainsaw. You just want to make sure that you educate yourself about the safe use of equipment, and again, the proper personal protective equipment or PPE you need. Eye protection, ear protection, hard hat, gloves, chaps, and the like. To do cut stump treatment, you need some sort of container and some way to apply the herbicide to the cut stump. So that can be a small jar with a paintbrush or sponge brush. Again, you can use a small squirt bottle, or my personal favorite is a device called a weed wand, and it's essentially a tube. So you unscrew the cap and you fill it with your herbicide and tracker dye. And then the end has a sponge applicator that you trickle the herbicide out and apply that across the cut stump surface. So it saves on having to bend over deeply all the time, especially if you're doing a lot of treatment. And so I'm using on my own autumn olive a 50-50 mixture of the Garlon 3A and water with a tracker dye added. You can also use this particular herbicide undiluted for cut stump treatment. You just want to follow, again, the herbicide label directions for the type of technique and the target species that you're working on. And then you will physically cut the stem. And you want to do that so that you're about 4 to 6 inches above the ground, and treat that stump as quickly as possible. Within 5 minutes is ideal for the herbicide to be most effective. So I'm going to show you some demonstration of some control methods I've done on my own property. And I hope that helps you control invasive autumn olive on your own properties.
So doing cut stump treatment is best when the stems are at least ½ inch in diameter, and where you have bigger stumps like this, you only have to treat the edge, so that cambium layer, the active vascular tissue. So notice I didn't cover the center part of the stumps. When the stumps are less than 3 inches across, it's best to apply the herbicide all the way across that cut surface for best absorption. So yeah, move debris out of the way, sweep any excess sawdust out of your way, and then use that sponge applicator. Now with autumn olive, it's often a multi-stemmed form, and so that can be really hard to get in there, especially if you're trying to use a chainsaw when you're working with these larger size stems. So a safe way to approach this is to cut the outer limbs, work your way towards the center, move the cut debris out of your way, and cut at a height that's comfortable, and then come back and recut down to that, within 4 to 6 inches of the ground, and treat. And again, when you're working with these old growth autumn olive stems that are several inches in diameter and 10 to 20 feet high, it definitely helps working in teams and having somebody basically spotting the branches, being prepared to catch them or pull them out of the way for the person operating the chainsaw. So when you're doing cut stump treatment of these larger autumn olives, you also generate a lot of debris. You're taking the top portion and you have to put them somewhere. One great way to use that cut material is to create wildlife brush piles. So if you want to learn more about that, check out Monday with Martha number 127. We go into depth on different ways of building brush piles for wildlife habitat. But that's one great use. You can also rent a chipper and make mulch. I did that at our house initially. We took out some autumn olive and chipped it into mulch for my new flower beds. You can also stockpile the debris and then burn immediately. What you don't want to do is inadvertently create wildlife habitat by making a brush pile and then trying to burn it at a later time. There is a chance that you may accidentally kill wildlife using your burn pile as shelter. Another technique that I think is pretty easy for homeowners to do themselves is the hack and squirt or frill and spray method. So this is similar to cut stump treatment, only you have to be okay with leaving the shrub or tree that you're trying to control as standing dead material. So if you don't mind, if you just let them kind of die standing, be perches for birds. So I'm leaving this one directly behind my bird feeding station because I know the birds like to perch in this autumn olive. So I'm going to leave it for them a little longer while I get more native species, shrub species going in this woodland area. And that this method allows you to do that. So you take a small hatchet or axe and you chop downward into and through the sapwood of the stems, and you're creating a little cup-like incision that should be about an inch or two long, and you should do several all the way around the stems. A couple of inches apart. And then you come back and you spray with a squirt bottle the same mixture of herbicide you would use in cut stump treatment. So this method is similar to girdling, where you cut a ring all the way around the stem to get through the vascular tissue. With that though, the tree or shrub usually sprouts back, and so the addition of herbicide helps prevent that and gets the individual killed all the way down through the root system. I hope going through these invasive species management techniques for autumn olive is helpful to you, and I wish you luck as you try to control this invasive species on your properties or other lands that you steward. Take care and have a good week.